Ah, December, the most wonderful time of the year. A time for joy and merriment, peace on earth, and goodwill towards men. The only time when men open their shut-up hearts and think of all people as fellow travelers to the grave and not some other race of creatures bound on their journeys. And therefore, although it has never put a scrap of gold or silver in my pocket, I believe it has done me good and will do me good, and I say God bless it.
And how does one celebrate Christmas on the unemployment line?
It's also a time for something else. Going absolutely mad listening to the same Mariah Carey and Josh Groban Christmas songs over and over again. But not for me. No, my particular taste in caroling is a bit more refined than that. For me, there is no particular tune that best suits this sacred time of the year better than a song that wasn't even written for Christmas. I refer to Good King Wenceslaus.
Good King Wenceslaus looked out on the feast of Stephen, when the snow lay round about, deep and crisp and even. Brightly shone the moon at night, though the frost was cruel, when a poor man came in sight, gathering winter fuel.
Hither, page, and stand by me, if thou know'st its telling, yonder peasant, who is he, where and what his dwelling?
Sire, he lives a good league hence underneath the mountain, right against the forest fence by St. Agnes fountain.
Bring me mead and bring me wine, bring me pine logs hither, thou and I will see him dine, when we bear him thither. Page and monarch forth they went together, through the rude winds wild lament, and the bitter weather.
Sire, the night is darker now, and the wind blows stronger, fills my heart, I know not how, I can go no longer.
Mark my footsteps, my good page, tread thou in them boldly, thou shalt find the winter's rage freeze thy blood less coldly.
In his master's steps he trod, where the snow lay dinted. Heat was in the very sod, which the saint had printed. Therefore, Christian men, be sure, wealth or rank possessing, ye who now will bless the poor, shall yourselves find blessing.
A tune originally sung in English celebrations of St. Stephen's Day, the day after Christmas, as St. Stephen was the first martyr. Well, not counting the massacred innocents. The song tells the tale of a good king who sees one of his people struggling to keep his family fed and warm in the bitter cold of winter. Feeling sympathy for the man, Wenceslaus and his page, an apprentice in old medieval terms, gather up food and fuel from the king's stores and deliver them through a terrible blizzard so the man can have what he needs for the winter, as Wenceslaus has more than enough to give. The saintly act of charity was looked upon favorably by God, that not even the harshest snow could stop them, so he miraculously kept the ground Wenceslaus tread upon warm, so as his page would follow, he would be sheltered from the winds and the cold. It's a lovely tale, but what if I told you it was based on a true story? No, not in the Lifetime daytime movie sense. I mean, there was an actual good King Wenceslaus, and not only would he have done something like this, and very possibly did, but this would just be a footnote in the man's career. His name was Wenceslaus I, and he was the Duke of Bohemia, which today you know as the Czech Republic. Or Czechoslovakia, but that's a whole different story in and of itself. Anyway, his story begins with his paternal grandparents, Zbigniew I and Ludmila of Bohemia. The pair were the first Christian monarchs of the dukedom after the fall of the Roman Empire, and the disarray and disorder that allowed paganism to spread. When Zbigniew had passed, Ludmila would join the convent as a nun, and the throne would be passed on to their son, Vrakislav. Vrakislav was a Christian as well, but his wife, Drahomira, was the daughter of a pagan chieftain, and while on paper she converted, she still held on to her old pagan beliefs. Vrakislav, however, would die young at the age of 33, killed by one of his very own allies, leaving his wife Drahomira alone with their two sons, Wenceslaus and Boleslaus. As neither of them were old enough to ascend the throne, Ludmila would act as regent until the eldest son, Wenceslaus, was of age to be crowned. Ludmila would take the role of Wenceslaus' teacher in these years, and the two would grow close, causing jealousy between him and his mother, Drahomira. Because of this, she would grow to resent not only her mother-in-law, but the Christian faith itself. As a result, she would order Ludmila murdered. Two men would enter the castle where she slept and strangle her in her sleep, leading to Drahomira becoming regent. This injustice, however, would outrage the citizenry of the land, including Wenceslaus, and would lead to a Christian rebellion in Ludmila's name. At the end, Drahomira would be exiled, and Wenceslaus would assume the throne as duke, now being 18 years of age. From here, the reign of good King Wenceslaus would go down in history as a series of legends, including the tale of which the song was inspired by. There was also instances of him giving up his own coffers to the church generously and to the needy of his dukedom, particularly towards war widows and orphans, who during those days had very few means of sustenance and employment. Because of this, Wenceslaus was not a big fan of needless war and bloodshed, as it would lead to suffering on both sides. This was not helped at all by being surrounded by neighboring tribes and kingdoms in the Middle Ages, a time where war was just a way of life. Among the groups that would attempt to dethrone the good king were the Franks, the Saxons, and the Magyars. There was also a man by the name of Count Radislaus, who history can only assume was from within his own Bohemian court, as there had been a number of pagan uprisings aristocratically led during his reign. As the legend goes, when he met Radislaus on the battlefield, Wenceslaus challenged him to solo combat to prevent needless deaths. When Radislaus went to charge at Wenceslaus, the good king raised no resistance, and when Radislaus was about to lay the killing blow, he fell to his knees, allegedly in the sight of angels that had appeared before the good king, and he repented for his rebellion and asked the king for forgiveness, which he was given without question. Now then, what good is a saint's story without the martyrdom? How does it end? Well, you see, while Drahomira was banished, her influence was still felt in the land, particularly in her younger son Boleslaus. While Ludmila was teaching Wenceslaus the qualities of a good Christian king, the jealous Drahomira was poisoning the mind of Boleslaus against his grandmother and older brother, and teaching him the pagan ways that would allow him to rule with an iron fist when Wenceslaus was gotten rid of. Years into the reign of the good king, Boleslaus would gather a group of nobles who still held on to these pagan ways and would start a rebellion. By its end, Boleslaus, with his mother practically in his ear, screaming at him to kill Wenceslaus, who showed no resistance to his beloved brother. Boleslaus went through with it, however, piercing a lance through Wenceslaus' heart. Before he died, however, Boleslaus realized what he had done and was immediately remorseful. Legend has it Wenceslaus' final act was to forgive and lovingly embrace his brother before he passed on to heaven. With the addition of Boleslaus having a son born that very day and his guilt over his actions, he would become the next duke, but would also renounce the pagan ways that would lead him to doing such a despicable act. Though it is unclear if he'd convert back or not, if he did not, it's quite easy it's because of his guilt. He saw himself unworthy of the kingdom of heaven for the sin of fratricide. This aside, he all but solidified the baptism of Bohemia as a kingdom, and his children would be taught in the ways of Christ, including the next Christian king, Boleslaus II the Pious. Though it doesn't end here. Among his children was also his daughter, Dubravka of Bohemia. She too was raised as a Christian, and in telling the story of her family to her betrothed husband, the pagan Duke Mieszko I of Poland, he was so utterly moved by the tale he converted and became the first and last Christian Duke of Poland, and would even name his son after his father-in-law, Boleslaus I of Poland, Boleslaus the Brave, the first Christian king of Poland, starring the baptism of the nation. A single act of forgiveness is enough to change the course of not one, but two kingdoms' history for the ages. Wenceslaus would be venerated by the peoples of Prague and Bohemia well into the modern day, becoming the patron saint of Prague and of the Czech Republic. He was canonized by the Pope in the Orthodox Church and given the posthumous rank of king by Holy Roman Emperor Otto I. hence the name Good King Wenceslaus. Legend also has it that in Bohemia's greatest need, he would awake from his slumber with an army of 1,000 knights, ready to defend their nation in its time of most dire need. And in a way, he kind of did. The hymn, the Wenceslaus Chorale, was used as a song of rebellion during the Nazi occupation of Czechoslovakia, and even used by the fighters of the RAF Squadron 310, which consisted of exiled pilots from Czechoslovakia, primarily Prague, and the song would continue to be a song of rebellion during the Soviet occupation of the country as well. The Good King has been with his people in their greatest of needs, and his spirit will live on and inspire Bohemians to resist injustice and to do good towards their fellow man. Pretty base for a figure from a public domain Christmas carol, huh? This has been the Koopa Man. Game on.